Hi, my name is Richard Stokes. I'm the Director of Census Communications and Engagement, and we're here today to talk to you about the next census. And with me, I have got
Mike Berry, so I'm the manager of the customer engagement team. Lovely to be here with you today.
Look, you're probably watching because you've got an interest in the census, and you're probably aware that we're still finishing off the 2018 census. So first release of census data for 2018 will be in September, but we've got to turn our attention also to the next census and start preparing particularly the business case for the next census, which will give us the funding to continue on towards the next census. So that's what we're here to talk to you about today, and we want to get your input as well. So you're either part of the census community in some way as a stakeholder, a customer, with an organisation that uses census data or benefits from the use of census data by others. So your input is very important to us, and we want to get that input early on at this stage while we're looking at the business case, and we'll continue on once we move into the other stages of design for the census as well. So on screen now you'll see a timeline through to the next census. So at the moment we're seeking your input into the high level design, and your feedback will be used to inform the development of a detailed business case and budget bid. So it's a bid that we put forward to Treasury for the funding of the census, and that'll be submitted late 2019. And that's shown in red, so that's the bar in red on the diagram that you're looking at. And you'll see December 2019 there, business case and budget bid submitted to Treasury, so that's the time frame that we're working to. So it's important to note that this is just the first step towards the next census, and you can see in the green bar below that stakeholder engagement continues after the business case and continues right through the whole census cycle. And we're very keen to find out when you want to be involved within this whole process, so that's something you can let us know. At the bottom of the diagram is the dark blue line, and that shows the engagement plan for the timing for engagement around the census transformation. So census transformation is looking at the longer term view of census, and we started on this path 7 years ago, and it's about the sustainability of the census. When we know that costs are rising, it's getting harder and harder over time to get the response, and there are administrative data sources of higher quality evolving as well. So within that whole picture, where are we heading to with census is the census transformation journey, and we want to align the processes of engagement for census transformation with what we're looking at here for the next census as well, hence why it's on this diagram. So recently we've completed our first round of workshops and community engagement to discuss the broad concepts for the next census, and there's a summary document of these on the next census Lumio landing page, so if you want to go back to that page you can see the summary there. So at the workshops we've asked stakeholders to consider 3 high level topics, and the things to get us to a starting point for the high level design, and for that high level important direction for the census program and development and the budget bid. And we want to get your input as well into those, so we'll be moving on to those soon. Once we've gone over the information, we really want your input. You may not want to comment on everything because this presentation is a bit of a catch-all, but we know that you'll be interested in certain parts of it. So please just feedback on what you're interested in or your organisation is interested in. So we'd like to now ask you some of the questions that we've been using in the workshops, and that'll help us inform the high-level design. So first off, we're going to talk about the census model that we can use. Which you'll see there, the International Census Model. And the UN Housing and Revision Guidelines, they give us 3 options. So I'll just quickly take you through those options. The first being what we're calling full field enumeration, which is a traditional census. That's information on census topics concerning individuals and households collected by census questionnaires directly from respondents. So that may be using field staff or other modes of data collection. So in 2018, of course, we had an online response as well. So collecting it directly from respondents, the key thing. And look, a number of countries have used that. New Zealand 2013, 2018, Australia in 2016, Canada as well. It's been a commonly used model. The second is a combined census, where it's predominantly survey supplemented by administrative data. So clearly you're getting the survey data from Census for full field enumeration and then supplementing it with the admin enumerations to fill missing people units. And that's where we've landed with New Zealand Census in 2018. You will be aware that our level of response is lower than planned, so we have used a higher degree of administrative data to fill those missing people units. And the third one is full admin census, so that it's moving further along the journey with administrative data. So with admin data being the main source, then supplemented by a large scale attribute survey. So pretty much those are the three options. And on screen now there should be a continuum which shows that from full field enumeration right through to the other extreme, I suppose, of admin data only. So those combined options in the middle of those. So that's the census model covered. So if you could consider the pros and cons for each option and maybe look at that continuum where you think we should be on that and make a note of that, what you think or representing your organisation, and then you'll be able to complete the sliding bar at the end of the video.
One of the really interesting periods of development for the census is looking at content. Now, we're early in the process for the development and we're not going to get into or looking to get into the detail of determining particular topics or questions within the census, but we are very keen to get an overall view of where our customers, stakeholders and community organisations feel that we're at in terms of their information needs and to help them provide some direction for our early planning. So a couple of things to note about the census is there are some legislative requirements in terms of what we do need to collect in the census, and that includes a count of the population, and those topics include name, address, age, sex and ethnic group. Also good to remember that the census collects information about the dwellings, so part of that legislative requirement also includes collecting information of the number of occupants on census night, the number of rooms within the dwelling, home ownership and of course the location of that dwelling. What we're really keen to find out from people, including our customers and community groups, is to get an indication of the scale of change for the next census, and that's going to range from minor change to the current census content that we have. And that minor change at the moment in terms of an option, it's important to note that we have some commitments that we have promised following the last census around being more inclusive. Now that topic in particular includes our interest and commitment to being more inclusive in the area of the sex, gender and sexual orientation topics. Our government statistician Liz McPherson has recently committed us to looking at that topic for the next census and including it. We have made some progress in that area within our household survey suite. So that first continuum of change is around minor change, but being in particular being inclusive around that area. On the spectrum too, we're also looking at the possibility of a full review of topics. That this is something that we want customers and users to think about broadly and not so much in the context of now, but also trying to project out thinking from the timing of when census is done to the availability of data, and considering whether government policy or community need dictates some change to the content of the census form. So what we're really wanting you to do is to consider the census model that we've talked about, consider the timing of the census that we're just about to talk about in a minute, and think about the continuum of change and provide us some feedback on where you think you or your organisation sits on that spectrum.
The last of our three broad concept options is around the timing of when the next census should be. And again, we've got three options for you, which will be on screen. So the first option that you'll see is 2021, and I think it's considered as an option because it would get us back into international realignment. We've got the words not feasible there. It's 2021 is to hold a census so soon, because it is July 2019 now, it would be very high risk and expensive. There wouldn't be the opportunity to refine our approaches, run proper testing to do so and deliver with absolute confidence in 2021. So 2023 is the next option, which we believe would allow sufficient time to refine our approaches and to test. So logistically, we could deliver in 2023. It would enable electoral boundaries to be redrawn, and it would deliver the earliest robust data on the population as we move forward. Also, there wouldn't be any legislative change required for 2023, and would retain the existing time series for the census, New Zealand Census in 2023. And the last option that you'll see there is 2026. Clearly also would be feasible. It would get us back into international realignment. It would provide more time if we were looking at a higher level or for significant change. Would give time to do so. It would break the existing time series, and it also would require legislative change. I think maybe a key thing to consider here is there would be an 8-year gap in census data from 2018 through to 2026. So those are the main points around those three options. So please consider the pros and cons for that option around timing. And again, make a note of it, and we'll get that feedback from you later if that's something you want to feedback on. So that completes the topics we have for the conceptual design. We're now going to move into some other topics around high-level design. So the three topics we've covered are the ones that we've been talking to stakeholders in workshops. We're now going to move on to three topics to develop the high-level design. And we haven't workshopped these, so here's your opportunity to get in first on these. So the three topics are the population of interest, the collection of information, and engaging the people. And certainly population of interest, this is one key to Mike's heart, so he's going to take over and explain this one a bit.
We're going to talk about what counts we produce from the census when we look at publishing information on our population and dwellings. The first one that is a traditional census count that we use in New Zealand is what we call a census usually resident population count. Now this count is a count of who usually lives in New Zealand or resides in New Zealand and we're present in New Zealand on census night. So really important to make some distinctions or criteria around that count. It includes everyone counted at their usual resident location. It excludes overseas visitors who are present in New Zealand on census night, and it excludes usual residents who usually live in New Zealand but were away on census night outside of the country. The second count that we produce from the census currently is what we call a census night population count. Now this includes everybody counted at their census night location. It does include visitors from overseas that were in New Zealand on census night, and it does exclude usual residents who were overseas on census night. Now really important to make that distinction between those two population counts. Currently we do produce counts for both the usually resident census population count, so that's what we output most of our data on. For a small number of customers who have an interest in the census night population count, we do produce that. The third population count that we're going to talk about today is what we call a census estimated resident population count. Now this is a count of the population who usually live or reside in New Zealand. This count includes everyone counted at the usual resident location, similar to the usual resident count, excludes overseas visitors, includes usual residents who were overseas on census night, and makes a calculation for those who were missing from the count on census night. So the next topic we're going to talk about today is the collection of information, and this is an area that's dear to our hearts and something that we're really looking to improve on. To reiterate some of the method that we did use for 2018 to enable us to look forward to the next census. We did collect census in two ways. The first, we used paper forms and online. We would really like you to consider these questions about what are the barriers that people have to complete their census, what are the barriers that stop people doing the census online. How can we look to remove those barriers and make the experience better for participants? How will we enable people to complete paper forms? We would like to consider the distribution aspect of that, whether it be by post, by field officer delivery at your doorstep, and looking at some more future focused or innovative options that might involve email or some other method. We're also really interested to understand how we can make it easier for people to fill in their census forms, so any information or thoughts that you've got, please feel free to feedback. Another area of interest for us following the 2018 experience is the lag time between Census Day and the follow-up. So we're really interested to know any suggestions or thoughts you've got around the follow-up following Census Day on how to encourage participation in the census and get to some of those hard-to-reach groups. During the collection phase of the census, a really important part of what we do is, of course, engaging with people and getting the communication, marketing and engagement process underway and aligned with our collection process. So I'm going to hand over to Richard to talk about the final topic for today.
So final topic is engaging the people. So here's a topic I can talk about without fear that I'm saying the wrong technical thing, which is quite good. So in terms of engaging the people, I think that this covers communication as well as engagement. So it's an opportunity for you to provide some comment on how we reach people, for one. The census is an exercise where we've got to reach everyone in New Zealand, and not just reach them, but provide them with enough understanding of the value of census to take the action to take part. So clearly communications and our engagement with people is an important part of that process to get through to the response. And I am focusing on the response part of the census here rather than our communication around outputs and data afterwards. So from that point of view, I've got some questions here that again would love your feedback on, but also don't just limit yourself to these questions if there's further things that you'd like to feedback on. So the questions that we have here, or the statements: do you think people see value in census, and how can we effectively deliver that information to them? Secondly, what are the main challenges to communicating messages to members of your community? And we're very aware that even though I say we've got to reach the whole country, not everyone is the same, and communities are different, regions are different. So how do we communicate messages that are real to people, fit with their thinking and what's going on in their lives? Number 3 is what resources are required to help people engage with the census in our communities. So what do we need to support, not just our messages to people, but other people who value the census and want to see the best result for their communities? How can we support them with messaging? And what channels work best in your community? As I said, the whole country is not the same. Messaging can be different for different communities, as can channels. So what is the best way to work within your community? So feedback on those things would be much appreciated. And clearly as well, we've done a lot of evaluation of our communication and engagement approach for the 2018 census, and we can use that information as well, together with what you feed through to us and others will be feeding through to us on the approach that we can take for the next census. So that is the main part of this presentation. So firstly, thanks if you got this far. Well done. And look, we've covered the 6 key pillars of really what it takes to make up a census. So when this video finishes, you'll get back to the landing page, and you'll have a choice of those 6 areas that you may want to comment on. So as we've said along the way, this is sort of a wide-ranging presentation, so you'll probably have an area of interest or 1 or 2 areas, so you'll be able to go into those, and there'll be some structured questions within those, and plus the opportunity just to provide feedback in the way that you want to. So once again, thank you for taking the time to have a look at this. So thank you from Mike, and thank you from me.
Really appreciate your input, and hope you enjoy the video today.
Cheers.